Hello folks, Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing here in Dallas, Texas. What are we staring at? Well, we're always staring at my Lincoln Navigator, right? Well, I want to talk about something. I had a subscriber, love this guy. Since I've met him, we've been communicating by text or by phone almost on a daily basis. We go back and forth, we banter back and forth, we kind of tell each other the issues we're having with auto detailing. He called me up last week and we had a really nice conversation on the phone. He was telling me he was having issues with using a rinseless wash, O&R. I'm not throwing O&R under the bus, but I'm going to talk about the issues with rinseless washing and the things that you need to look for. This is not a negative video about O&R in any way, but there are issues with O&R that people need to know or don't need to know. It's up to you, whatever makes sense in your world. But he was telling me, he said, Scott, whenever I use O&R, it doesn't matter, I scratch the paint. And I said to him, well, what kind of vehicle do you own? There are certain situations where O&R or any type of rinseless wash may not be appropriate for you if you're really trying to be diligent about keeping scratches off the paint. If you have what we call in the industry soft clear coat, here's a car that typically has it or a make that typically has it, Infinities, Japanese paints. They're incredibly soft, incredibly scratch sensitive. All clear coat is, but some of these cars like Infinities, Acuras, some Hondas can mar very easy. So what he was telling me he was doing, I have some O&R over here mixed in half a gallon. I've got it diluted 256 to 1. I think that's the way they want you to do it, right? They also make some other claims. A lot of rinseless washers do this. O&R does it. It's a big part of their sales pitch. That O&R has the ability to encapsulate and what's the other word? Infuse, encapsulate dirt, and emulsify dirt. Well, here's the truth. Yes, their formula can do that to some extent on contaminants that are on the paint that are not bonded, but here's the truth. Sometimes we're like cattle let off to slaughter. We got to remember something. Water can do the same exact thing. It's been doing it since we've been on the planet. And again, it's diluted 256 to 1, mainly water at that dilution ratio. I am not saying that O&R is not going to provide a lot of slickness on this panel, which makes it safe to be able to do a rinseless wash. But here's my point. If you have, this happens to be a microfiber towel, I'm going to do the Gary Dean method. Love that guy. By the way, how come he doesn't allow comments on his videos? I don't know. But I'm going to use the Gary Dean method. I'm going to use a microfiber towel that's been sitting in the half gallon of water, diluted 256 to 1 with O&R, and I'm going to wipe it across the panel. Now, if you notice, I'm going in straight lines, right? And take a look at this nightmare. I just washed this truck about 2 weeks ago. It's long overdue. Look at that. That is filthy, greasy grime, right? Now, you can do it that way by going over the panel, keeping the microfiber flat, go all the way down if you want. There are other methods too. They're telling you to take the microfiber towel, do one pass with it, and then when you flip it over, you want to watch where your dirt line is, then move your towel over, get a new area, new edge to work with, and go across the next section of your panel. If you're going to do that, that's fine, that's great. Just be prepared to go through a lot of microfiber towels and spend a heck of a lot of time going over your vehicle, especially a large Lincoln Navigator like this. It's going to take a while. But here's my deal with O&R or any type of rinseless wash. Yes, it's great. It provides a lot of lubrication on the panel when you're rubbing your microfiber towel across it. Now I've got polymers on the surface of the paint. If you have a car that's easily marrable, is that a word I'm looking for? Or it scratches easy. This is where the issue can come into play. Not only with trying to wipe off the panel of dirt and grime, but when you go to dry it, O&R leaves that polymers on the surface. They're a little slick. Sometimes they don't like to buff out all that well. It will be a little streaky and you'll have to go over it several times. It's almost like you're trying to remove a wax or a paint sealant off the car. You'll have to kind of buff your way to perfection. Not a problem, but you know where it's a problem? In a car like my subscriber told me about, where he's got soft paint. He's scratching the car using the microfiber, going real slow. It's going to happen anyway. Then he wants to remove the residue and kind of buff out the O&R. He's got to take a separate towel to do that. It doesn't really want to go away all that quickly. Again, it's a highly lubricated type of soap. It wants to hang on the panel to give you protection. But if you've got paint that's easily marred or can scratch easy, it's soft paint, you're going to find yourself scratching the car too through the process of trying to buff out that O&R. Now the other issue is, when you're using a rinseless wash, O&R loves to talk about this. They got that big red sponge, right? I don't have it here with me. I have no interest in buying it. I can see through the game of smoke and mirrors because I know something on this panel that's not coming off. O&R's got a big red sponge. It is great for removing surface dust and dirt off the panel. They then tell you that because O&R, the way it's formulated, and that sponge has got all those slitted, like a Rubik's cube, it's got all those fingers and it's all sliced up, that you throw your sponge back into the O&R. And what are they telling you? They're telling you when you put your sponge into the O&R, the dirt will release from the sponge and it will all drop to the bottom of the bucket. That is absolutely true. What they're not telling you, what most companies will never tell you, is that when you are rubbing that sponge across the surface of the panel to pick up dirt, loose dirt, grease, not grease, but loose dust and dirt off the panel that's not bonded, yes, it will stick to the sponge. When you drop it into the bucket, thinking you're releasing all that stuff, it will do that, but it's not releasing something that's incredibly important to release off your wash media. On the surface of this panel is brake fluid, transmission fluid, motor oil, radiator fluid. And some of you are going, what? What are you talking about? Well, if you've driven through the rain recently or driven in the rain since you washed your car last, it is all over your car. It's on the highway system, being splashed up here from other vehicles. When you take a microfiber towel with O&R and go across the panel, or you're using that big red sponge thinking you're completely removing everything off the panel, you're not. And it will not release. That stuff is not water soluble, even though it drops all the stuff. When you throw the sponge in the bucket, yes, the dirt drops to the bottom, but guess what stays up at the top of the bucket and just kind of hovers throughout the fluid that's in the bucket? Brake fluid, motor oil, transmission fluid, radiator fluid. It's not water soluble. It will rise to the surface and sit there, so you're constantly dunking that red sponge back into the bucket and you're never releasing it completely. So what is my point? How do I use O&R on my own cars? How do I get amazing results with it? And what are the steps I take to help my customers who are... This process will work for people who wash their cars on a weekly basis or every other week. The most important thing to me, yes, I can use O&R on this panel, and I'll do it again. I'll show you how I would use O&R. I'll dunk it into this bucket. I'll slightly squeeze my microfiber towel so it's just slightly dripping. I'm going to go over the panel with O&R. This is great. It's removing all the surface dust and dirt off the panel. I'll even go back up, right? That's a no-no. And then what I'll do, as it's sitting on the panel, it's slightly wet, I'm going to take some paint prep. This happens to be Duplicolor wax, grease, polish remover. And when that O&R is still wet on the surface, I will take a couple spritz of my Duplicolor paint prep and just hit the panel. Now I'm going to dry the panel with a plush microfiber towel. What I have done and assured myself is not only have I taken advantage of O&R's ability to be awfully lubricated on the panel to remove the dust and dirt, I then spray my Duplicolor paint prep, whatever paint prep you want, and I spray it on the panel. That makes sure I remove brake fluid, transmission fluid, all sorts of grease and grime and radiator fluid that could be on the panel. I'll do this all the way around the car. I will wash with O&R. I will spritz with my paint prep, dry it off, go all the way around the car like that. When I get back to this spot, I am ready to go. I simply take a spray wax. Meguiar synthetic spray wax, Optimum spray wax, all great. This is typically the only product I will put on my cars because I'm maintaining them weekly. I will shoot a little spray wax on the surface of this panel, come in here with my microfiber towel and just massage it into the paint. Flip it over and buff. Now what I've assured myself is not only is the panel clean of dirt and dust, there is no wax, grease, or any other type of contaminants from the road that splashed up on this car. That gives my spray wax, whatever one you choose, the best chance to bond to the surface of this paint. Folks, I've been doing this for years. I get tremendous amount of compliments from people in the grocery stores when they see my car. They'll say, how does your car always look clean and why is it always shiny and glossy? I do not overthink it. Those who don't wash their car very often, maybe it's going to take you a month and a half before you get back to it. You want to apply a protection on the car like a paint sealant because you don't wash it all that often. Yes, you're going to want some more protection on there that's going to give you more durability, but here's my point. How do you know how much you've got on that paint? Here's the deal. Paint sealants, waxes, all that stuff, when they go through their testing process with manufacturers, they'll test them against heat and moisture. They don't test them with all sorts of contaminants splashing on them. They don't test them with brake fluid hitting the panel. They don't test it with motor oil hitting the panel. They don't test it with industrial fallouts hitting the panel. They also don't test it against friction. When you're driving this car down a road at 65, 70 miles an hour, there's a tremendous amount of pressure from the wind on this panel. Friction is a form of erosion. That's also pulling off waxes and sealants on the car. My issue here is that if you want a truly clean car, of all grease and grime, dirt, dust, and all that good stuff, you don't want to have to overthink, because if you got a paint sealant on this car and you're only washing it every once a week or twice a week, and you're always trying to protect the layer below it, I get it. If you're not washing your car every week or every other week, this process may not make sense for you. But if you're worried about that paint sealant breaking down, I can promise you, friction from highway driving, all those contaminants that spill up on there is no way for you to determine when your sealant has begun to break down. You don't know how long it's going to last. You're probably going to have to apply it every 2 months just to be diligent. So in my world, I don't overthink it. I don't overthink it for my customers that have their cars maintained with me weekly or every other week. I will wash their car. I will paint their panel. I will spray a high quality spray wax on it and be done with it and see the car in a week or two and do the same process over and over and over again. I wash cars faster. They are truly clean, more clean than most people who have a paint sealant and they're worried about using anything on the paint that can break down that sealant, so they're being awfully gentle. That's cool, that's great, but I'm telling you, there's contaminants on the paint that are already eating your paint sealant anyway, and if you're going to wash your car every week or every other week, take advantage of these high quality products that make our life easier and just do it this way. That's just my opinion, guys. Don't beat me up. But this is how I get amazing results from my customers. My customers say my cars always look shiny, glossy, and clean. There's going to be a professional detailer that asks me, Scott, O&R doesn't scratch paint if you use it correctly. This is a scenario I give to professional detailers all the time. If you use O&R, right? Let's say this was black. This Lincoln Navigator was black. The customer said to me, I want a two-step correction on this car. Fine, great, be happy to do it. It's going to cost $800-900, whatever, and I'm going to be working on it for 6 or 7 hours. Fine, I'm happy with that. I do the whole car, two-step correction all the way around it. He comes outside and says, I love it. And here's the scenario, guys. If my customer says to me, Scott, to maintain this vehicle, I want to be diligent. I want to use O&R every week and do a rinseless wash so I don't get any dust or dirt on it. I want to be proactive. My body is going to cringe when he says that to me. That's not going to be the option I want him to do on a black Lincoln Navigator I just spent 6 or 7 hours and several $100s trying to correct. When I tell professional detailers this scenario, that's typically when they start to smile and go, okay, I got your point. Then the customer wants to up the ante and says, I want to be proactive and I want to make sure no industrial fallouts or contaminants fall on the paint. Can I clay bar my car once a month plus wash my car once a week with O&R after I just did a two-step correction on a black car? The answer is no. I'm going to do everything I can to talk that customer out of that scenario because I know what it's going to do to the paint over a period of time. If you're going to use O&R, the point is, or any rinseless washes, verify that your car is not easily scratched or marrable. I don't even know if that's a word, but it sounds cool. When you use O&R, when that residue is left on the panel and you got to buff it off, it can be a little streaky on you. You'll find yourself trying to buff it like it's a wax or a sealant that you're trying to remove from the paint. If you have a car that's easily scratched, you're going to introduce more scratching under that scenario. The other issue here too is you got to remember that big red sponge, when you throw it in the bucket, yes, it releases the dirt. It does not release brake fluid, motor oil, all that stuff, and it's not water soluble. It sits in the bucket. So every time you're dunking it back in, releasing the dirt, you're only pulling out that nasty water, that nasty grease and grime that did not separate from the sponge, and wiping it back on the panel. If you're going to wash your car once a week or every other week, it's a very quick process. O&R it, paint prep it, wipe it down, do that all the way around the car, spray a high quality spray wax on the vehicle. If you're going to do it every week or every other week, it gives you enough protection for that period of time. Your paint will truly be clean, highly glossy, highly shiny, very slick on the surface, a lot of water beading. Again, if you're diligent about cleaning your car and you're going to do it once a week or once every week anyway, don't try to overthink how much paint sealant do I have on my car, how gentle do I need to be, has it begun to break down? You're going down a rabbit hole too deep when you're already determined that you're going to be maintaining your car weekly or every other week anyway. I appreciate it, guys. Hope that kind of helps. Just my opinion. Thank you, Trent. Oh, I said your name. Didn't mean to say that, but we'll communicate some more. Hopefully that helps people understand the process of rinseless washing, how I do it, how I wash and maintain my own vehicles. And until the next time, guys, love one another, and we'll see on the next video.